To the extent that we live our lives in a manner that is consistent with the truth in our heart, we thrive.
Welcome to the Meyer Clinics podcast, and you just heard a quote from one of your hosts, Dr. Lisa Day. Join our licensed clinical professionals from various backgrounds as they discuss fascinating mental health topics with a wide range of guests. Meyer Clinics is a Christian counseling organization with multiple clinics nationwide dedicated to treating the whole person, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Welcome to our listening family. We thank you for joining us. Well, hello, Dr. Lisa Day.
Oh, Happy New Year, Kristin. I'm glad to be back.
Yes, and I love starting out the new year with this topic. Warning signs you are dealing with evil. I like it.
Well, and it's a biggie, and when we think of evil,
Yes.
I think most of us go to the little red man with the horns on top of their head.
Right.
And certainly for the Christian walks and in the scheme of biblical definitions of evil, in its most purest sense, we certainly can think that God is love, and that, the absence of love in a person is ungodlike, or it doesn't present those qualities as evil. And I don't think it's just that simple. And when I was preparing for this podcast, I was thinking, you and I have done a number of podcasts, and you have done many podcasts on narcissism. And we talk about narcissism, and it's become almost as common as toilet paper. I don't know why I chose that analogy.
Okay, let's see a different one. Cheetos,
Cheetos,
Kleenex.
there you go. Okay, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's some Freudian connection there.
Yes, but we must use toilet paper. You don't have to eat Cheetos. So I'm with
Fair
you
enough.
on that.
Fair enough. But we talk about narcissism as if, it's a calico cat. Oh, that's a narcissistic individual. And it's become commonplace. We've been empowered by it. We've been entertained by it. But I think that when I was preparing for this presentation, I was looking at, at least for myself, I know that one of my character defects or assets, depending upon how you want to look at it, is that I'm chronically optimistic. I'm always wanting to look for the very best in people and for the paths that I cross. And when I'm looking for the very best and I'm thinking, this is going to have a good outcome, I think it can foster denial. And, I have 27 years as a therapist. And so when I was thinking about this topic of how can we walk through and really be able to identify when in fact we are dealing with evil.
Yes. And it's interesting. I just did a show yesterday after a break with Dr. Paul Meyer, and we did the show on rest, and we clipped a quote from it that talked about, because, he is the same as we are, a chronic optimist. So we took a soundbite out of it where he says, don't just automatically give your trust to people. Trust is something that you develop over a long period of time. And boy, what a reminder. So there's that. And then there's also, I figured out from the end of last year that I cut this off at the end of the year last year. And I know we're going to get into, when we notice evil or evil behavior and then we go, forget it, I'm done. But when we do that more quickly, that means we're learning from the past.
Right.
But I think it's interesting how I realize, we always have to look and go, well, what is it that sucked me in this time? What gotcha of mine is it? Well, mine is, if they're a therapist, I give them somewhat of a free pass because I hold people that are in mental health with such benevolence. And you know what? I'm going to keep holding that. However, just because someone's a therapist doesn't mean that they are automatically doing good in the world.
Well, or I say, be careful, because they too can bite.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that so many of us believe that we're a good judge of character. And unfortunately, sadly, that's not always the case, because, and we don't want to fault ourselves out of the gate, because these people are really skilled. We'll go through the characteristics, but they're very skilled at deception and manipulation. And this is a pretty harsh word, but they're parasites, and they'll take advantage of you to get what they want, and they'll make you feel really good along the way.
Absolutely.
It's only when we start looking at it objectively or take a couple steps back and we're thinking, I feel bad about this, or I'm feeling guilty about this, or I'm feeling coerced or controlled or criticized or judged, or that we realize that, no, these aren't good people. These are people who are pretending to be, and they're acting like regular people.
Yes.
And the other thing, I think
Yes.
what's so important that you say, of having an eye out for it, with therapists. But, evil people, unfortunately, we see them in schools, we see them in workplaces, we see them in churches, we see them everywhere. And they can be among our, I would say, social group, because hopefully, as we walk through this afternoon, we'll be able to determine whether we let them in as a friend. Because, for the pure definition of a friend, someone who's kind, loving, respectful, has your back, will be gently truthful with you. We'll see that these characters do not have those qualities at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I like that we're going to give here are some things to do. So take it
Yeah,
away, Dr. Lisa
you betcha.
Day.
And so this one, we might have a lot of people look down and look away when I start with this one, because a lot of people, when they haven't developed proper boundaries, still use this skill. So I guess one of the things that I need to emphasize is, if one or more of these qualities shows up, if you've got a couple of these qualities that show up in your partner, your mother, your father, your friend, we don't want to go home and say you're evil, right? But we want to know that the collection of these are qualities that are associated with evil people. And then likewise, if we have these qualities, any of these qualities within ourselves, because as we work through here, we'll see that some of us might have some. We want to take ownership of them and look at, if we, in this 2020 vision, in the new year, do we want to take these on as something we want to be aware of, and we want to modify our behavior? So the first one that I think most people are very familiar with is that evil people are passive aggressive. Their remarks may not be addressed directly to you, but sooner or later you're going to realize that they're saying things and doing things that are unkind. They're subtle. They're
Right.
under the radar. They're, despite their words being evasive, they still know, and they still do have an effect on us, and they give us an insincere, backhanded comments. But when people are passive aggressive, if you really loved me, then you would come with me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not mad at all. I wouldn't expect anything different from you. They're comments that you usually have to listen through it twice and think, oh, that was really not kind. That was really not pleasant.
Right. You
So
get a little in your gut after, and you wonder, why do I? But you start going into some cognitive dissonance. But they don't seem like that. Was that a dig? I don't. Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
yeah, and one of the things that when we work through here is that oftentimes when we're looking for evil, when we're talking about relationships, or maybe I'm biased and I think of it this way, I'm thinking my romantic partner. But we want to think extended family, we want to think friends, and really, we want to think workplace. Because workplace is one of the most common places we're going to be put in with people that we didn't necessarily have the ability to determine if they were like-minded, who energize. And so we want to look for these subtleties. And so, passive aggressive behavior in the workplace are going to be our colleagues that shoot everything down, every proposal we have. Or if we do propose something, they're going to jump in and take it as theirs, and mock you for thinking that it was yours. So passive aggressive is a big one. One that is classic is when one is manipulative, when they want to turn our yes into a no, or our no into a yes. And evil people, they're not concerned about the repercussions of their actions. As long as they get what they want, they'll manipulate in order to get that.
Right. Can we make one differentiation here?
Absolutely.
People that are evil, people that are behaving in an evil manner. Is that the same thing, or could that be two different things? And where I'm coming from is, let's say someone is absolutely in dire straits, and some traumatic thing is happening in their life, and they do not act this way, most, if not any of the time, but during this time period, they really were behaving horribly.
Well, and that's a really good thing, because in scripture, in Romans, we learn that people can fall into evil behavior, meaning it can start slowly, and then there can be this tragic progression into more and more evil. And so, there are certain people who can fall into it. There are certainly people who can have isolated situations, much like one can have a behavior that looks like a borderline personality disorder, and it's not going to warrant them a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. And so I think that we're looking at a pervasive pattern of behavior.
Okay.
And so,
Gotcha.
are there evil behaviors? Are there people who are evil? Is there a spectrum, on a bell-shaped curve? Absolutely. And then, the jury is still out, and I don't think that it's black and white. Are people born this way, or do they grow this way? And I really do think yes, and a combination. I think that some people truly are born. I mean, studies on sociopathic behavior, not all sociopaths are going to go out to be serial killers.
Right.
But sociopathic behaviors, as we'll talk about as we move on here, it's not uncommon to see the cruelty to animals, disregard for the impact on others. If that's a nice bracelet, I think I'll take it. And so we see that character very often is born, but then the environment around it can reinforce it. So when confronted, if someone is born with those sociopathic or those antisocial personality disorders, what's met with, when, hey, Johnny, did you take my bracelet? Of course I didn't take your bracelet. The house cleaner stole it. So they learn to get out of their mischievous activities by lying, which then evil begets evil. And so I think that's where in Romans we learn that, it can be a progressive development. And, tracking back to what you were just saying, I think that as we go through this list, I mean, I've manipulated before. Please just come with me. It'll be so much fun. Don't worry about all of those other things. I'll get it all done. Hey, I'll pay for the house cleaner, so then you have to worry about doing that. We can go. I mean, that's manipulation. I'm interested in me having that person come on that camp trip with me, and I'm disregarding the impact it has on them. So in its pure sense of the definition, that was evil. And so, yeah, I think that as we go through these, we want to look at the far end of the spectrum. So on a bell-shaped curve, 2 standard deviations out, and really to what extent does it interfere with connection and attachment? And I think that one of the things, Kristin, and I'd love your input on this, is that one of the things that I know when I'm interacting with evil people is I feel it at my gut level. Something's not right. Something's, yeah. And as you were saying with Paul Meyer's statement about trust, these are the classic statements. Oh, you can trust me. I'm coming from a good place. I don't mean any harm in that. I was just kidding. But the classic one, I tell people, if anybody says you can trust me, run, don't walk. Because trust is earned. It's not, it's not automatic. So people are passive aggressive. They can be manipulative, or they are manipulative. And in those passive aggressive and manipulative behaviors, it's self-serving, right? The ones that begin to become far more obvious is those people who always need to be right. They're not, it's not a two-way conversation.
Absolutely. And you can bang your head against a wall, and no matter what, I mean, you finally have to learn through, listening to shows like this and studying about this kind of topic, you finally have to learn, okay, how do I get away from these people with as little drama as possible? I've gotten really good at figuring that out. Oh, this one needs to be right, and they need to be right in public. So I'm going to set up a scenario to where they get to be right, and then I can leave. And that means they're not going to come follow me and continue to bother me. I mean, you literally do have to set up scenarios like that so that they just go away and leave you alone. You're not fun anymore to play with. You're not the mouse in the bathtub and they're the cat,
Absolutely, because they won't take your thoughts or feelings into account. They're very arrogant. They're very adamant. Unfortunately, we can see this behavior in the political climate of our country right now. It doesn't mean that people are evil, but it's a behavior that's causing a breakdown in connection. Follow me? My need to be right, my lack of concern for the impact that my words, my position, my belief has on you is, a part of, is that evil? Are those people evil? No, but that behavior is something that we want to be aware of. Am I entering into a conversation where I need to be right? Or am I honoring and compassionately leaning in and learning from other people? I can disagree. I don't need to accept or be on board with them, but am I shutting them down? Am I saying, nope, you're an idiot? Whoever thinks like that, really, it's amazing.
Right.
School, you begin to attack the character. So it's that level, of attack.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so I have to say it because the next one that I was going to talk about, Kristin, is that evil people are mean to animals, and I hear Kristin walk out there, hey, be quiet. And
yes, listeners, we do have things come up in the middle of shows. You can set up the most pristine bubble of quiet, and then all of a sudden, UPS shows up and your dogs are going crazy. So Lisa Day just got to hear me go, hey, stop it.
Which is not evil, which is loving. But how many of you, and I don't know, and again, I don't spend a whole lot of time on Facebook, but I always get an enormous punch in the gut when a horrific picture of an abused, typically deceased animal shows up in front of me. And my gut, even though I've been in the field of mental health for almost 30 years, how can anybody do that.
I know.
And the how to that, folks, is those people are evil. People who are cruel and destructive to animals, and that's different than someone who just doesn't like animals. But people who are intentionally unkind and abusive to animals, good sign you're dealing with someone who's evil.
Right.
I say to people, if someone comes into your home, it's one thing if they don't want to pet your dog, but if they kick your dog, not only do we not ever want to invite that person into our home again, but perhaps we want to not invite them into our life. You know, it's a cruelty to animals is usually a precursor, to cruelty to humans. Humans.
You're right. Exactly.
The other thing, I don't know if you've experienced this much, Kristin, but evil people tend to take joy in other people's failures. Meaning, I told you that wouldn't go anywhere. I told you were wasting your time. I knew you wouldn't get that job.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have wistfulness or even envy, some jealousy, but you learn, as you get older, okay. And sometimes that's a motivator to go on and do great things. But when you go out of your way to undermine someone, to set up scenarios where you're using passive aggression, most likely, you're manipulating other people, you're gaslighting other people to get them to join you in the taking someone down a few notches. That's when we're getting into, okay, this is moving towards the land of evil.
Well, or when you go, from being, the next best things to sliced bread to being bashed and people making up lies and talking behind your back and chuckling, when something doesn't go forward. Oftentimes evil people see people as their rivals, their competition, they're threatening. And I know I walked through a similar situation with you where not only did a relationship dissolve, but then there was vicious firing back. Just really vicious firing back.
It's been super interesting to have that, be in my life. I've said this on other shows, but I have friends that are in the world of celebrity, and I can call them and say, look at what this person is putting on Facebook, and they're saying my name, and and I, of course, it's not true. And there's a long list of people that were at the same place saying that's not true. And my friends say, Kristin, go on BuzzFeed and read something about us from the latest movie we were in and see what we have to deal with. We just don't even look. And I'm like, okay, I understand that you have it on a level that I will never understand, but it's still awful.
It is awful. And one of the things that I know, and I think I've shared this with you before, is I've been aware of it really from coming into the helping profession many, many moons ago. And it's been validated in many of my studies and in spiritual studies, is that, the greater our work, the greater the resistance or the greater the attack. And, when I look at things such as, Mental Health News Radio, and I look at, being a therapist and helping people really find relief and finding a way, to navigate in this thing we call life, you're at a greater risk of being on the receiving end of evil because it threatens. Threatens.
That's actually something that I've done shows with Dr. Paul Meyer about too. We've said, because he has certainly experienced that as well. And we've just said, and he is one of the kindest. I think he's a saint. And I know that he's not. He keeps trying to convince me, I promise you, if you really knew. I'm like, I know, I understand, but you're a wonderful human being. And, and, he's had to deal with that kind of thing too. So, and that was very helpful, Lisa, during my time of weirdness, that to hear that, because you do have to know, no, you don't deserve this. There's a deeper meaning for this. And sometimes it's because you're doing good work in the world, and that throws people off that are wanting to not do good work in the world, and they don't want anyone else to either.
Or if they're not the highlight, they're not the center of attention, they're not worshipped, right?
Right.
And so, if you're kind and loving and respectful and you have a boundary and you say no, and that goes against what an evil, narcissistic, or sociopathic person desires, they're going to attack you. They're going to undermine you. And they'll hold back at nothing. I mean, another quality is they're compulsive liars. Evil people have no problems faking it, fabricating stories, or telling lies just so that people think that they've accomplished something great. something,
Right.
that they've got a whole business going, they've got a whole direction going, and they have nothing.
And there's
And
nothing there.
and there's nothing.
It's a guy sitting in the basement of his
Yeah.
parents' house or whatever it is, not doing anything.
And isn't it really something, Kristin, when, and I speak with this with great compassion to, those who are with us and listening. And I think that, both you and I, even in our experience and our walk and our teachings, every single day, we're at risk of it. Follow me, because we're looking for the best, and these sound great. And so, looking for these fine-tuned things. Is this person passive aggressive? Is this person manipulative? Is this person judgmental and critical of other people? If they're talking poorly about other people, you bet your britches they're talking poorly about you.
Right.
Do they have a well-established network of people who love them? Meaning, what you will find with evil people is they operate in hatred. There's a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, and there's a lot of ex-friends that have done them wrong.
And a lot of vitriol.
Yes.
Hi, this is Dr. Paul Meyer of the Meyer Clinics. Our Christian counselors across the country have a goal of helping all those who come to us to become what God has called them to be. If you're in a situation where you're not at peace within yourself, or you just feel like there's joy that's missing in your life, we can come alongside to help you obtain peace and joy.
This message is sponsored by the Meyer Clinic Foundation, a nonprofit Christian counseling ministry. The number is 1-888-7-CLINIC, 1-888-7-CLINIC.
And blame shifting, that nothing has ever been their fault. They were arrested for this, or that company fired them for that, or this relationship ended because of them. They were expelled from
school for this, or they were whatever for that. Exactly. There's
I
mean, and we're in mental health. That's what makes it a little bit challenging for us, is because, we are dealing with people that have had sometimes, including me and many other people, a storied past, a character-rich past, because we're dealing with mental health challenges, or some people are dealing with substance abuse or whatever it may be. So, you tend to be more forgiving of, oh, well, I've had things happen too, but you have to be able to discern between, okay, that was my past, and look at my life now and what I've overcome and the way it is now. And then look at this person. It does not have this person has overcome nothing. They're still steeped in evil deeds.
Well, and I think what you're pointing to, which is so very profound, is that through your walk, through your journey, through your healing, and through your growth, you develop compassion. And we don't see compassion with unsafe, evil people.
Yes, that's
we just
true.
we don't see compassion. It's very self-absorbed. And true, again, as we walk through these lists, we want to look at, are there defects within my character that are considered evil? I mean, I remember when I was in grad school and we would have roundabouts, or we would sit and we'd process. I was so darn excited about everything that I was learning that I could easily have talked the entire group time and about my experience and what I learned and how exciting this was and where I put 2 and 2 together, and the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. And my professor said, "We'd like to hear from your peers." And I remember thinking, oh, that's really not okay. But as we go through here, one of the qualities of an evil person is they only talk about themselves. They only talk about their experience. They don't listen. And so I think we want to look about intent. So sometimes our intention is excitement and passion, and we're lacking the considerations for the impact that it has on others. It's not that we disregard, have no interest in, and could care less about another person. And so all of us have room to grow in the arenas of qualities that could, the manipulation, or being self-absorbed, or being controlling. We want to look at where we are in the spectrum, but also as we navigate through these qualities today, we want to look at the outliers, the people that are flat out, 2 standard deviations or beyond on these qualities. And really, it's because we consistently feel awful when we're with them. We consistently feel awful, and we feel empty, and we feel charmed, right? A charm. I say, run, don't walk from the person who charms you, because that's the first indicator you're dealing with someone who's unsafe. They're getting you off base.
Usually in the same conversation, you feel drained, like a vampire has been, on your carotid artery, and you have got nothing left to give. And at the end of the same conversation, they look like they could skip to the moon.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Why are you smiling?
Right.
It's like, this isn't funny. Yeah, this isn't. Well, and with that, with that character, you're never going to hear them say sorry. You're never going to hear them take ownership. if you even try to say, hey, this wasn't really cool, or actually you aren't actually you don't have 4 years of research behind you, or you aren't the CEO with these funds to back up the research, you are quickly going to be put into that frenemy category.
Absolutely. And attacked. And you are also, they will do things, and this is passive aggressive too, and also changing a public narrative. They'll say, well, I tried to reach out, I tried to have a conversation, and they ran. They will say what they've done to you as if you're doing it to them. And you're like, wait a minute, 100 people tried to call you, text you, whatever, to see what's going on. If it's a family drama or it's a work drama, and the person doing the evil deeds doesn't respond to anybody, doesn't get back, and yet they will tell everybody, I tried.
Or they'll accuse you, and that's that's something so important. So they project it onto you, which puts us into the position of needing to defend and explain. And a tactic that is worth mentioning is that when we begin to see that we're on the receiving end of that kind of behavior, the blame shifting or the accusations, our temptation is to defend or explain. The most powerful position is simply, if we say anything at all, is to say, I don't agree. I don't agree with that. And we've talked about this in other conversations about narcissism and sociopaths. Oftentimes, the most powerful response is no response. I lovingly say we curtsy and exit left.
Yeah.
There's no reasoning when people operate to this extreme. They'll mislead you. They're egotistical. They only think from their position, from what they can gain, what they can take.
Yep, absolutely. Exactly. And you say what you have to say so that you feel done with it. And then, who's the one that's still talking?
Who's the one who's still talking?
Yeah. It's either you still triggered, still feeling like you need to defend yourself, or, and even still, you'll be done with it long before they will, because they've got to carry these stories. And believe me, you are in a bag of stories with a lot of other really good people. You can actually walk back and, I've done this before, made friends with some of the other people that have also been targeted by someone who's behaving in an evil manner or who is evil. And, they become friends for life with me. And I always say, gosh, I was in great company. So it depersonalizes it,
It does. Well, it's affirming. I know I had a client in here, a couple of years ago, a wonderful woman, and she had met a man, and she was head over heels for this fella. And he was tall, dark, and handsome, and had all kinds of backcountry skills. And I said, well, tell me more about him. She said, well, I'm a bit concerned because he has restraining orders with 2 of his previous wives and his last previous relationship. I said, well, this is not a good thing. I said, what about a legal background? And she said, I don't think he has a legal background. I said, well, would you like me to show you how? Well, he had 60 misdemeanors.
Yeah.
And you met, and she said, I'd like for you to meet him. I said, I don't need to, but out of respect for you, I will. And so she brought him into session, and he was this handsome and charming and funny and good looking. And, when you begin to ask him, well, so tell me about you, it's a strange relationship with mom and dad. It was dropping out of school. It's multiple thefts and arrests. And just that blame shifting.
Yeah.
And then when I said, well, what is it that, formulates your attachment here? When I began to push, what does intimacy look like here? And what do you see? And we'll call her Susie. He got up and left, meaning
Yes.
I see you is what I said. I see you. And she didn't come back for a couple of weeks, but probably about a month or so later, she came back, and I guess everything had really escalated when she started to navigate and challenge him on these arrests and these domestic violence issues. She was a controlling, evil, bad word. And he bailed. And she became, another one of those. She went on the list, as you talk about.
The list, exactly.
She went on the list. Yeah,
exactly. I remember saying to someone, well, and I didn't know them for very long, and I was warned, and I said, well, I've learned I always go on one of those background check sites. I have a monthly subscription, and I look it up, and I'm like, there's a travel ban for you to this foreign country that you're saying you want me to come with you to present something and put my network's name on it. Tell me about that. Oh boy, I became the evil, horrible person. blah, blah. And then, the truth came out about all these other companies that were awful. And I thought, oh, thank goodness for sites like that, because,
Well, and absolutely. And I think that something is worth pointing out though, is that sometimes, Kristin, by the time that we have looked into that part, they've hooked us, right? So we're hooked into the charm, to the positive controls. They've worked their way into our heart, into our belief, or to our workplace.
But they've hooked us financially.
Or
Maybe
they've
we've
hooked us.
hired them to do something
Yes.
for us, or we're starting to do something. Other people are involved, and you don't want, and it seems like it's too late to back out. I mean, there's a million different ways that you can be hooked.
Well, and I think that's where it can foster our denial. And so I think,
Absolutely.
awareness with self, and, I speak often about listening to our truth. And I say, to the extent that we know our truth and we operate in a manner that's inconsistent with that truth, we have chaos and drama. And I think we're very much at risk there, that our gut is off. Our truth is that A and B aren't lining up. And then we do, an investigation like this, and we're invested with them financially, emotionally, relationally. It's not as easy as just saying, okay, I'm going to curtsy and exit left. How to back out of that web is not very easy. And also, we want to note that it can be dangerous, right? So I tell people, when we've come to a place to recognize that we are dealing with someone evil, we don't want to say, I've realized that you're evil and I'm out of here.
That's the worst possible thing that you can. Trust me, because I have done that and it did not work.
No, it doesn't work. And it can be dangerous. They can kick in doors of your house. They can ruin your work reputation, your relational reputation, your reputation in church.
Storm around with a loaded gun, which is something I dealt with a former NFL player. Yeah, there's a lot of where when I looked at him and I said, you are just an evil sociopath. Okay, that was not the right thing to say behind closed doors.
No,
with a 300-pound football player.
Well, and you know what? You will see their eyes go black. And when you talk about evil in the biblical sense with the little red horns on top, you will see their eyes go black. And it actually is a neurochemical response, because
okay, thank you.
They get a surge of cortisol. So we know the fight or flight. And I'm here to tell you, those pupils go big and they're going to take you out. And they have no parameter of, okay, this is a work relationship. All of a sudden, you've become as threatening as a 200-pound cougar walking in my office right now. And I am going to take you down. And so little disagreements are dealt with as if you just, killed their youngest child. It's vicious. So,
let me ask you this. I mean, thank you, because I always wondered, why is it that his pupils, but I also, and I've heard this from other people too, from a biblical perspective, I have seen twice in my life someone who was, just pathological evil behavior, who, as I'm looking at them in the midst of them telling a lie, they literally it looked like their face morphed into a gargoyle or
and Kristin, I don't want to get too woo-woo.
Yeah.
But I call it black eyes.
Okay.
And not black guys or black ice. I call it black eyes.
As in eyeballs.
Yes. And again, when you're in this path and you are doing good and you come from a genuine place of love, you are going to meet resistance. And I've met this level of resistance before, and I get goosebumps as I share it. And when I come up against it, I see black eyes. And that's where I personally pray, dear Lord, cover me with the light of the Lord. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I'm safe. And I just hold my space. I don't confront. I don't provoke. I hold space. Because at that point in time, the black eyes definitely are a response of the cortisol within the system.
Okay.
But they are in attack mode, and they're not thinking rationally, and they will hurt you. They will hurt you, because they're not thinking, if I push you, shove you, bring my car into you, that I could get arrested. They don't give a hoot.
Right.
They're in attack mode. So when we're walking through this, we don't want to go home and say you're evil. Right. We want to begin to go, wow, this is not someone that is in my best interest to spend time with. And if we are going to actually back out of it, we really want to take an I position, that I realize that the directions that we're going in are not similar, and I'm going to move in a different direction. Or I don't see a future here, or I don't see this moving in lifetime partnership. That I've enjoyed these times. I've enjoyed the conversations that we had. I really do say that we're going to be a little evil, and we're going to manipulate them. We're going to give them strokes. We're going to try to diffuse, and then we're going to exit out. They'll still put us into the frenemy category and blame us and think we're a whack job, But we don't want to provoke these people. We want to say, I'm
Right.
going to move in a different direction. I don't think this is best for me. I'm excited about what you've got going here. I think you should still pour your energies there. But for me, I'm moving in this direction. So
And
do not
yeah,
provoke.
and put yourself in a situation where you are in as safe a place as possible, maybe not even in their presence, if you're going to make this kind of a statement also. I mean, make sure you're safe. A
Yeah.
lot of us we have our own egos to contend with, and we're so angry and upset about what this person is doing that we just want to, lash out and show them that they're wrong. And again, it's not worth doing that. You win nothing. Your ego wins nothing to do that.
And do realize that, per narcissistic, they have a baseline fear of abandonment and rejection.
Yes.
And so when you do exit, they're very bright people, mind you. I mean, they're
But they
very
can
bright
smell
people.
it.
Yes. And so, with this client that I was telling you about, this experience that I had, I think probably a year or so went by, and she called me, and she had received a text from this man, and she had had no contact, and something along the lines that, I'll be in town. Feel that pitter patter in your heart? That's me coming closer. I'm in town. I'd like to see you. And so, she texts me, Lisa, what do I do with this? And I said, don't respond. I said, that's it's a feeler. He's trying to reach out and he's using his charm. I said, don't respond. So she didn't respond. And she went on her merry way. And then this fellow phoned her again. And again, what do I do, Lisa? Don't respond. And she came home that afternoon, and she was doing something or the other. And she realized that her back door had been kicked in.
Yeah.
And the temptation is to reach out and say, are you kidding me? Did you come and kick my back door in? And that's
Right.
exactly what an evil person wants. They want to re-engage.
Absolutely.
They want to pull you in and say, no, that wasn't me. Can I come over and help? What's going on? And so, I instructed her to phone the police, and the police came out and they did a police report, and the police followed up with this man. And they're very, very smart, but they tell so many lies that they end up tripping over their lies.
Yes.
And what this client did say was that she had proof that it was him, that it was on a video. And so anyway, the police reached out to this person, and the police report came back, and she was in my office, and the police phoned her when she was here. And their counsel to her was, do not talk to this person. Go immediately to get a restraining order. And above and beyond any circumstances, have no contact. And that's what I generally encourage with narcissists and sociopaths, is not to provoke, but not to interact, but really be aware of those hooks. They throw out these hooks. It may be something like that, but it also could be, my mother's dying and I really need to talk to you. So they're manipulative, they're controlling, and they'll do anything to have to deal with the reality that you left them because of a character flaw or defect, that rejection and abandonment. Yeah, and then that's where you will really see the black eyes. That's where you'll really see the evil come out.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Mm.
And so I think that, like in summary, we want to, the qualities that, they're entitled, they're overly confident. And some people think that confidence is sexy, but this is a different kind of confidence. This is an arrogance. This is a disregard. They're very biased. They can be racist. They can be homophobic. They're very judgmental. They're very critical, but they're overly confident. And they definitely are not a real friend. You definitely cannot trust them when they tell you, oh, you can trust me. Let me see those gems that your parents left you and you're keeping in the lockbox. If it feels weird that someone you don't know that well wants to see your gems, that is weird. Listen to the gut. Don't disregard the gut and go, oh, well, he just is interested. No, he's going to steal them. So, so be aware of those things. They're fake and they're terribly deceitful.
Yes.
And so we want to be, we go through here. And again, Kristin, I think that so many of these qualities, obviously what we're talking about are sociopaths, and we're talking about narcissists. And on both of those, a narcissistic personality disorder, a sociopath, one of these qualities isn't going to make the person have that personality disorder, that mental illness. It's the
combination, the combo platter.
Combination, yeah. And
order up: evil, malevolence, gaslighting, sociopathic tendencies, abuses animals, is passive aggressive. It's that combo platter of things all together in one big jambalaya of evil. That's what you got to watch out for.
It is. And so for those of us who are navigating this thing we call life, and knowing that there are a fair number of evil people in our world, the first thing that we want to be to take note of is awareness. We want to be fruitfully aware of self. And I tell people, when you come to the place where you are aware of being aware, then you're operating it. I mean, when we drive our car down the road, we don't drive straight into a pothole, right? We go, oh, pothole, go around it.
Yes.
And so we want that level of self-awareness, not fear, self-awareness. And part of that self-awareness really is listening to our gut, listening to our truth. If something doesn't make sense, it probably isn't sensible. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And so, we don't want to give these people 6 months to a year. We want to be able to be skilled in saying, that's a pothole, my tire is going to get popped. Oh, that's manipulation, that's passive aggressive behavior, that's self-centered, that's controlling, that's egotistical. Run, don't walk. Run, don't walk.
And, for those of you listening that, grew up around these kind of people, and so that just seemed, normal. And so you've had a lot of them come in and out of your life, as you do your work on yourself, as you develop your self-esteem and you develop trust for yourself, because you've been told not to trust yourself. That's the biggest thing an evil person is going to do. They're going to try to chip away at your trust of yourself. And they look for people that they can easily shake. And if you're someone that's grown up around this, that's definitely a gotcha for you. So as you do your work and you go see people like Dr. Lisa Day and you do the hard work on yourself, you can get to this point where you do trust yourself, and your immediate knee-jerk reaction is, that's not right. And that's not okay. And you walk away much sooner than you used to. So we're not looking at, oh, I never do it again. That's not how it works. Sorry, that isn't how it works. It's more, oh, okay, got this one quicker and with less carnage. Good, well, I'm doing better.
Absolutely. And the analogy I give people, I mean, I'm a skier, right? And I say that if you look at, you don't learn how to ski by never falling. We learn, the best skiers have had the most vicious crashes. And so relationships are the same way. But you're right, when you're involved with a person like this, yes, there's damage, there's a lot of collateral damage, but I agree with you, Kristin. I think that the most pervasive damage is that not only do we have a loss of trust for others, it's when we lose that trust for self. Yes. And so healing that
or we
part,
never had it.
Or we never had it.
Never had it. If you're someone who dealt with child abuse, sexual abuse as a child, at the hands of a parent or any adult, that trust of yourself, especially if you were told, don't tell anyone, it's your fault. I mean, you grow up with this lack of trust for yourself because no one taught you how to trust yourself. So you have to learn those skills as an adult. I mean, you don't come out as a baby and, you do come out as a baby and you trust your parents are going to take care of it. That is true, actually. Right. But, you have to learn these skills when, it isn't fostered as you're growing up. So you can become much easier prey for people that behave this way. But boy, is it nice when you there's nothing like someone who's had that kind of a childhood. They grow up, they get banged around by a lot of evil people, and then they learn. And then that person is a warrior out there. Nope, not going to happen,
Well, and you come to a place where I say you can smell them.
Yes.
Right? You can smell them. You're like, right. Oh, you can hear them talk for 5 to 10 minutes. And granted, I may be biased. I've been doing this for years, but you can begin to see them just like you would, oh, that's a Dalmatian and that's a Labrador. Not that one is narcissistic and sociopath.
And that's a jackal. That's the one I'm not going to pick up from the puppy store. Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, I think that when we go through these, we certainly can take from it, do I have any of these qualities that I want to put on my radar to challenge myself to grow, being less manipulative or controlling or speaking only of myself? And we can develop empathy skills and compassionate listening skills. But I think that, knowing that, I remember, and I'll say this and then I'll shut up, after the Columbine shootings, and it was an NPR report. And, I am a perpetual optimist. And I forget who was being interviewed there, but the comment was, we have to remember that there is evil in this world.
Yes.
And I think that's the takeaway here, that there is evil in this world, and we're powerless over all other people, places, and things. And most importantly, we're powerless over changing them, no matter how much we love and how much we have compassion and want to help people.
Right.
But we have full control over our ability to identify them and to get ourselves out of those situations.
Absolutely. Perfect end. Wonderful podcast. Dr. Lisa Day, thank you so much for coming on the show, getting back into it in 2020. And we will catch everyone next week on our next podcast for the Meyer Clinics podcast with Dr. Lisa Day.
Thank you so much, Kristin.
enjoyed this podcast. Tune in next time for another engaging discussion on relevant mental health topics. If you have any questions about Meyer Clinics, please visit our website at meyerclinics.com. That's MEIER clinics.com, or call us at 888-7-CLINIC. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. And please note that we are a member of and produced by Mental Health News Radio Network, MHNRnetwork.com.